Did you know that you can make mushrooms and grow mushrooms on oak logs? Today I am going to show you how, because it's actually pretty simple and it doesn't require too much time, but whenever you have finished working on a log, you can produce mushrooms for up to 10 years. I heard stories about someone who were producing mushrooms on very, very thick logs for up to 20 to 25 years. I don't know if that's true, but we got some nice oak logs here. It was cut down in the beginning of March, and because the beginning of the season of spring is the perfect time to cut your logs. And the reason for this is because that you want the logs to contain as much sugar content as possible. And this is the right period of time where it does this just before the spring comes and all the sugar goes into producing leaves. And so instead of this, we want to preserve it inside the logs before that happens and the leaves are being produced. So we have our log here. It's an oak log from an oak tree that we have been removing most of the moss from. And here we got a drill. So we got a drill here, and this drill is perfectly fitted for making these mushroom logs. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drill holes in it, and then we are going to fill in some mycelium from a Shitake strain, and then we are going to close it up using some candle lights. And the candle lights we're using is lights that are containing some oil and some paraffin, I think, because the guy who taught me all about this, he tested a lot of different things to close the logs with, like beeswax and normal candle lights, but this is what works best because this is how he doesn't get too many bugs inside the logs. What is going to happen is that when the logs are produced and we put mycelium inside, then the insects will think this is very interesting, so they want to go in there and eat it. And when the insects come in and they start eating it, the birds start figuring that there's insects inside the logs. So we want to make sure that this doesn't happen. And the way we do this is with using candle lights that are specifically for outdoor use. Here you can see I brought my trangia, and this is just a small outdoor cooking set. We are boiling some water here, and then we're heating up the candle, and we are going to use this to seal off the holes we are gonna make now. So I got some Shitake mycelium and specifically sawdust mycelium. So this is mycelium in sawdust. It's not mycelium that's in grain as usual. The guy who taught me all about this told me that this is the way to go. So this is what I am going to do. And yeah, now we are going to just make holes inside of the log. If you are like me and you like to do the minimum amount of work and get the maximum amount of results out of that, then mushroom logs is definitely for you, because we are going to do this work one time and then we are going to lay them in a pile. I will tell you all about how you keep them and how you can make sure that they won't dry out, but it's essentially some work that you do one time, and then after it's done, you can harvest and continually harvest on the logs for many years to come. So what we are doing right now is we are taking the mycelium, putting it into this thing here, I don't know, this inoculator. Then we are placing it in the hole, and then I am pushing the mycelium inside, and you can see here now it's located inside the log. So what happens now is, after we are sealing it up, then the mycelium will grow inside the log and it will essentially spread out and take over the log. The reason why we are taking all the the moss of it is because we don't want the moss to be inoculating the mushroom log as well. We want the mycelium of the shiitake mushroom to spread out and take over the log. So we're using oak logs, and this is what I heard is the best to use because it's the highest quality and it is also what shiitake mushrooms love to inoculate and eat and produce mushrooms from. So as you can see here now, we have the whole row is filled up, and as you can see as well, the whole log is basically filled with holes that we just made. So we are going to fill up all of these holes, and after we have done this, then we are taking our heated candlelight here, and then we're just closing the holes with a little amount of candlelight to make sure that the box doesn't get in and that the hole is sealed off so it doesn't dry out. The most important thing about this procedure and process is, as you can see here, we got a lot of mushroom logs that Tobias he made yesterday. What is very important now is that the logs will never dry out, because if they dry out, the mycelium stops growing, and it's kind of like whenever you grow mushrooms and you ruin the mycelium and it stops growing, then it has to be kickstarted to start up again. And if your logs is going to dry out, then you're going to have to kickstart your logs again, and the process is gonna take even longer time. So you want your logs to be laying on a flat surface where there is something laying on the ground, and they will lay on top of this to make sure that all the bugs from underneath doesn't get into the logs as easy as possible. So after you've placed your logs in a pile, you're gonna put on some plastic. You're gonna water the logs just to keep them moist, and you're gonna put on plastic. And after you've done this, then you're gonna lay the logs and let them be there for 1 year. So these logs are going to just lay dormant for a year. And when we are doing this to the logs, it will make sure that the mycelium can really take over the logs and just start eating it. When this process is done, then we are in the spring of next year, we are going to dip the logs inside of a water fountain when the temperature reaches about 20 degrees in the daytime, so around May. And so then we are going to be able to produce shiitake mushrooms on these logs. Hopefully we are going to, I think we spent 500 euros on this project for 50 logs, and if everything goes as planned, we can maybe produce mushrooms worth 5,000 euros within the next 2 to 3 years. So we will see how it goes, and I think it's a very interesting project. We will definitely update you on the process, but yeah, I'm going to show you guys now how it looks whenever we are putting them in dormant mode and just putting some plastic on top of it. Okay, so in the last couple of weeks it has been very, very wet here in Denmark. As you can see, everything is completely wet, and we still have almost half of the logs still here waiting to be inoculated, but the rest of them are actually already finished. So we have put them over here and in the back of the facility. So they are just over there. We just place them on a piece of wood. So a piece of flat wood is on the bottom to make sure that there is not going to be that many bugs going into the holes that we have inoculated with the mycelium. And we inoculated all of these logs before we knew it was going to be a bit rainy, because that means that all of the logs will maintain a moist humidity. So from now on, from this point that they have been inoculated, they can never dry out. That is the optimum. So the optimum is that the logs will never dry out from this point, because if they dry out, the mycelium is going to be so if they dry out, the mycelium is going to be growing really, really slow, and that is going to put it into hibernation. And when that happens, you have to kickstart the mycelium again, and that takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of energy. Instead, we are going to just make sure from this point on that the logs will be laying in a humid place. We are going to put some plastic on it, and then we are going to leave it there for a whole year. And what that means, that we need to make sure that the next year the logs will be not dried out, but not completely wet either. So we put some plastic on them, and then in the summertime when it gets really hot, we are going to take off the plastic and just spraying some water on it a few times every week to make sure that the logs will never dry out. So yeah, this is basically the work we need to do, and then we should be able to get fresh mushrooms, fresh shiitake mushrooms on all of these logs in about a year's time. So let's see how it goes. We are going to update you on how it's gonna go, of course, but until then, I think there's not that much more to say regarding these logs. We will see in a year what happens, but yeah, thanks for following. I hope you got inspired by this. Maybe you can also do this, or I don't know if it's too late, but now you have an idea to what to do next year if this is something that you want to work on as well. So of course we are going to continue grow our mushrooms inside one of our 7 containers that are growing mushrooms right now. And yeah, we will see how it goes with the logs outside. But until then, we are going to grow all year round, of course, with our bags, as you saw in some of the other videos. If you are interested in learning more and seeing more from what we are doing on a day-to-day basis, then follow us on Instagram, and yeah, we can connect on LinkedIn as well. My name is in the video, so you can connect with me on LinkedIn, or we can watch each other on Instagram. So thank you for this time, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.